All right, YouTube, this is Kelvin, and I have another in-game concept for you in continuing my understanding pawns in chess series. And it was something I mentioned in my previous analysis that I did with Magnus Carlsen versus Levon Aronian at the 2020 Ultibox Norway Chess tournament. And it is when two connected pass pawns reach their sixth rank, on their way to promoting, and it's against a rook here. So I just kind of have like a little random position set up. And so just to kind of show you guys a couple of different ways that the two pawns here can overpower the rook. In this particular position, there's basically, or just pretty much any position, there's about three ways that the rook can try to defend against these two pawns reaching the eighth rank. And so one is going to be to try to prevent them from the front. Another is going to be to try to prevent them from the side. And then the other, let's say the rook is here to try to prevent them from the back. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what those three different defenses look like, and why these two pawns are so powerful against a rook once they reach the sixth rank. So if we just go ahead and just choose, let's go ahead and just choose, the defense. So let's say that your last move as black was to move the pawn, here to C3. And so, like I said, you have both your pawns on the sixth rank, and so the rook is going to go ahead and try to defend from the side. So he's thinking, okay, well, as soon as one of them pushes, I'm going to snap the other one off. And this shows you the difference between them being on this sixth rank as opposed to maybe them being a little bit farther back. So let's say, so the rook goes here. So let's say, okay, cool. I'm going to push this pawn up, right? So unfortunately, this doesn't work because once you snap this pawn off here, this pawn just automatically promotes. And now you have a queen. And so if we go ahead and just go back a little bit and look at the position, and let's say you push the other pawn, it's pretty much going to be the same idea. And so, the rook snaps this one off the board. And then, once this one pushes, you have a queen. And so we see that the side defense doesn't really work out. So let's go ahead and pop these pawns right back on the board. And so let's say the rook goes up. And let's say the rook, has gone to this square here. It's like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and swing to the front. So let me go ahead and do that. So you swing to the front. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna get them from the front. So basically, what you do in this position, if you are the piece with if you're the color with the connected pass pawns, is any pawn, whichever pawn the rook moves in front of, you're going to push that pawn. And so in this position, you're going to go ahead and push to C2. And like I said before, if the rook says, hey, I'm going to go ahead and just swing to this far pawn, my king's kind of right here, then you would just push this pawn. And then there's not a good way for the rook to try to defend. So we'll just continue to go through the moves. And so, naturally this is going to be, black's next move. And like I said, I mean, you just switch it either way. It's pretty much just a flip of it. And so let's say the king is like, hey, I'm trying to come in, I'm trying to defend and stuff. So you're going to have this move here. And so naturally you see that you can take this pawn, but as soon as you do, this pawn promotes, and now we have a queen. And then in this particular position, we also have a check with that. So, and then, I mean, it gets a little bit more advanced when you get into this type of an end game, and then you'll have to, use some tactics and, your knowledge of how the pieces move and things like that to, separate this king from this rook, and you'll be able to, win. This is a very winnable end game. But if we just back up just a touch here, get back to this position here. And so the rook comes up, push the pawn here, right in the one that, where the rook went right in front of, king might go. And so let's say you go ahead and push here, and let's say instead of taking here, you say, hey, I'm just going to swing over, and then maybe I can try to do something in this position. Well, that also doesn't work because you can actually push either one of these pawns. You can push the pawn here and queen, and then of course you know that the rook has to sacrifice itself for that queen. And so we take the queen off the board, and then we basically are just left with another queen once we promote. And so, and that particular defense doesn't work as well. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the last defense that you have, and that is swinging the rook behind. So let's say, for example, you had the rook in this position, when black pushed its move here. So I said, okay, hey, I'm going to just swing around the back, and it's, I should have me a chance of trying to get these pawns and stuff, right? And so basically, you're going to use the same concept that you used previously when the rook was in front. you're going to push whatever pawn the rook is attacking when it's behind. And so in this position, you're going to go ahead and push this pawn forward. And so white might, kind of be a little bit tricky and say, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and move right here. Because then I'm attacking this pawn and this pawn can't move. But even though it's flipped, you still kind of can probably see the pattern here. And you'll see that you can push this pawn up. And it's going to be somewhat similar to what you saw before. This rook is going to have to take this pawn, and then you will have your pawn promoting here. So as you can see, there's 3 different examples where connected pass pawns on the 6th rank on their way to promotion are going to be stronger than a rook. And so, like I said in the previous full analysis video that I did, I was telling you guys why why Carlsen resigned the game. And it was because he was in a similar type of position, something like this here, where black had his 2 pass pawns here. The king was in the vicinity about right here. The other king was here. The rook was here. And so if you guys notice, this is a very, this is almost identical to the position that they had in that game. And so, it's in this position. I mean, of course, Carlsen is seeing that, he just has to, kind of move his king over. Of course, we're going to just go and switch that. This is basically kind of like a little replay of, how the game would have gone. And then, I mean, all you really have to do is move your king here. And then you're going to be pushing this here. And then you're going to be pushing this here. And like I said, I mean, you see this position is the same as the position that you saw before. And there's just not a lot, there's not a lot that the white side can do in this particular position. And, as you noticed before, we had this position here, something similar to this or whatever. We had the pawns on the 6th rank here, and so this gives you a good idea of, the winning or saving possibilities, of a game when let's say you've lost a piece. And so, a lot of people will look at this position here and say, oh, wait a minute. So I have a king and a rook and they just have some pawns. So it's like, that's way winning. Generally, yes. So let's say we just back it up 1. You'll notice that the rules that apply to them being on the 6th rank doesn't apply to them here, because the rook has an extra move to be able to save it. So if he comes in front, you can't, you're not going to be able to move up, because then the rook can move over. And, well, I guess so, in that position, yeah. It's possible. I guess it looks like it's possible in that position too. I'd have to take a look at that a little bit further and see if that's maybe a saving possibility. But you usually have another tempo or 2, before you get to the end. And, those tempos definitely help save the game. And so that is when pawns get on the 6th rank, how they are stronger than a rook. And like I said, in these videos that I'm doing on the board here, I'll be attaching them to these analysis games that I'm doing. And so that way, if I'm going through the analysis and there's something that you have a question on, hopefully it'll be getting answered by me putting the cards in the top right corner of the screen. And then that way I'll have the videos that are connected to, the analysis that I'm doing and stuff. So it should be able to answer your questions and stuff like that. So, all right, well, I appreciate it, guys. Go ahead and subscribe and like, and let me know if there's any other concepts that you guys would like to see. And, I'm going over pretty much everything I can think of. So if you have anything else that you'd like for me to do, just, definitely let me know. And I'll see if I can't make a video of it for you guys. I appreciate it.